Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Thrall stood atop the hill overlooking the village, the wind whipping at his clothes. The land before him was scarred, unnatural deep cracks ran through the earth, and in the distance he could see the blackened remains of forests once lush and full of life. Fire smoldered across the horizon and the air was thick with smoke and ash. His heart ached at the sight. This was not the world he knew, not the one he'd fought so hard to protect. He closed his eyes, reaching out to the elements, as he had done countless times before. But where there had once been warmth and familiarity, now there was only rain. The earth beneath him trembled in anger, and the air around him crackled with hostility. Even the waters in the rivers below roared as if in fury. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Thrall opened his eyes, his jaw tightening. The bond he shared with the elements, the very essence of his power as a shaman, was unraveling. He had felt it for days now, but this was worse than ever. The elements were not simply restless. They were turning against him, against his people. And if he didn't act soon, he feared the worst for the Orcish land. He turned and made his way back down the hill to where his old mentor, Drakthar, awaited him by the fire. The aged shaman sat cross-legged on the ground, his blind eyes turned toward the sky, though he seemed to sense Thrall's approach. Despite his frailty, Drakethar's presence was as strong as ever, the weight of his wisdom palpable in the air. "The spirits are angry," Thrall said, his voice low but firm. Drakethar nodded slowly, his hands resting on his knees. "I can feel it. Their anger has been growing for weeks now, like a storm brewing on the horizon." Thrall knelt beside the fire, his gaze fixed on the flames dancing before him. But why? What has caused this? The elements have always been our allies, our protectors. Now they seem to view us as enemies. Drakthar was silent for a long moment, his brow furrowed in thought. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. "There is something dark at play here, Thrall, something beyond the natural order of things. I fear that the elements are being manipulated, twisted by a force we do not yet understand." Thrall says, fists clenched at his sides. Who could have the power to do such a thing? Drakethar's milky eyes seemed to focus on him for a brief moment, and Thrall felt a chill run down his spine. "I do not know for certain," the old shaman said. But there is one possibility that I cannot ignore." Thrall leaned forward, his heart pounding. "What is it?" Drakethar's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sara Deathwing, Teth." The name sent a jolt of fear through Thrall's chest. Deathwing, the fallen Black Dragon King, once a protector of the earth, now a twisted, malevolent force bent on destruction. Thrall had heard tales of the devastation wrought by Deathwing's madness, of the lands he had torn apart in his quest for power. But Deathwing has been in hiding for years, Thrall said, his voice barely above a whisper. "HFY now. Why would he target the element?" Drakethar shook his head slowly. "I do not know, but if he is involved, then we are facing a danger unlike any we have ever known." Thrall stood, his mind racing. "We cannot let this continue. If Deathwing is behind this, we must stop him before it's done too late." Drakethar nodded. "Agreed, but you must tread carefully, Thrall. The elements are no longer your allies. They will see you as an intruder, a threat." The Thrall's gaze hardened. "Then I will have to prove them wrong." With that, he turned and strode toward his hut, his mind already formulating a plan. He would need to journey to the elemental planes, to confront the spirits themselves and discover the truth behind their fury. But first, he would need to prepare. The journey would be dangerous, perhaps even deadly. But Thrall had no choice. His people were counting on him. The night was still as Thrall gathered his supplies, the only sound the crackling of the fire outside. His heart was heavy with the weight of the task ahead, but his resolve was unshakable. He would do whatever it took to restore balance to the world, to protect his people from the chaos that threatened to consume them. As he made his final preparations, he paused, his hand resting on the handle of his warhammer Doomhammer. The weapon, passed down through generations of his ancestors, had seen countless battles, had been a symbol of hope for his people in their darkest times, and now it would be his tool once more. He slung the hammer over his shoulder and stepped out into the cool night air, the stars above twinkling like distant flames. Drakthar was waiting for him by the fire, his face solemn. "Are you ready?" the old shaman asked. Thrall nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." Rikar stood and approached him, placing a hand on Thrall's shoulder. May the spirits guide you, Thrall, and may you find the answers you seek. With a final nod, Thrall turned and began his journey toward the elemental planes, his heart heavy but determined. The path ahead was uncertain and the dangers great, but Thrall knew that he had no choice. The fate of his people and perhaps the world itself depended on him. The journey to the elemental planes was long and arduous. Thrall could feel the air grow heavier with each step, the ground beneath him trembling as if the earth itself was alive with anger. The sky above was dark, swirling with ominous clouds, and the winds howled with a fury that seemed almost unnatural. As he neared the portal to the plane of fire, Thrall could feel the heat intensify, the very air around him crackling with energy. He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath before stepping forward and crossing the threshold into the fiery realm. The plane of fire was a hellish landscape, the ground beneath his feet molten and glowing with heat. Rivers of lava flowed in every direction, and towering mountains of flame stretched into the sky. The heat was unbearable, even for someone as experienced as Thrall, but he pressed on, determined to find the source of the disturbance. As he ventured deeper into the plane, he began to sense the presence of the Fire Lord, the elemental spirit who ruled over this realm. But something was wrong. The Fire Lord's power, once a source of warmth and protection, now felt cold and hostile. Thrall clenched his fists as he approached the Fire Lord's lair, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the spirit's anger radiating through the air, a palpable force that seemed to choke the very life from the atmosphere. Suddenly, a wall of flame erupted before him, and Thrall was forced to leap back, his instincts kicking in just in time to avoid being consumed by the inferno. He looked up, see the Fire Lord standing before him, a towering figure of flame and fury. "Why have you come here, Shaman?" The Fire Lord boomed, his voice shaking the very ground beneath Thrall's seat. "I've come to find out why the elements have turned against us," Thrall said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "Why are you attacking my people? We have always been allies." The Fire Lord's sighs blazed with anger. "All eyes, you dare to call yourselves allies after what you have done. You have betrayed us, Shaman. You and your kind have abandoned the ways of the elements, and now you must pay the price." Thrall took a step forward, his jaw clenched. "I have done no such thing. I have always honored the elements, always respected their power. If something has changed, then it is not of my doing." The Fire Lord roared, the flames around him intensifying. "Tari lies. You speak lies, Shaman. The elements have no place for those who would seek to control them for their own gain." Before Thrall could respond, the Fire Lord raised his arms, and the ground beneath Thrall's feet erupted in flame. Thrall barely had time to react, summoning the power of the elements to shield himself from the inferno. The heat was unbearable, and Thrall could feel the flames licking at his skin despite his best efforts to hold them at bay. With a grunt of effort, Thrall swung Doomhammer, unleashing a shockwave of elemental energy that sent the flames scattering. The Fire Lord staggered back, momentarily stunned, but his fury only seemed to grow. "You cannot defeat me, Shaman." The Fire Lord growled, his voice like the crackling of a wildfire. "Dare you, and your kind will burn for your betrayal." Thrall knew he couldn't defeat the Fire Lord through sheer force alone. He needed to find a way to break through the spirit, as anger to reach the truth behind this madness. "I'm not your enemy," Thrall shouted over the roar of the flame. "If we've been deceived, let me help you find the one responsible." The Fire Lord hesitated for a moment, the flames around him flickering. "Free deceived? What are you talking about?" Thrall took a deep breath, sensing a small opening. "Someone is manipulating the elements, turning them against us. I don't know who or why, but I intend to find out. Let me help you. Let me restore the balance." For a long moment, the Fire Lord was silent, his blazing form flickering uncertainly. Finally, he lowered his arms, and the flames around Thrall subsided. "Very well, Shaman," the Fire Lord said, his voice quieter now but still filled with an undercurrent of anger. "But know this, if you are lying, I will burn you and your entire world to ash." Thrall nodded, relief flooding through him. "Hey Ray, I swear I will find the one responsible for this chaos." With the Fire Lord's still reluctant cooperation, Thrall continued his journey through the elemental plane. The next stop was the plane of Earth, where he hoped to find more answers, and perhaps more allies in his quest to restore balance. The plane of Earth was a stark contrast to the fiery inferno he had just left behind. Here, the ground was solid and unyielding, the air heavy with the scent of stone and soil. Towering mountains and deep valleys stretched as far as the eye could see, and the very earth seemed to hum with power. But as Thrall ventured deeper into the realm, he began to notice the same signs of corruption he had seen in the plane of fire. The ground beneath his feet was cracked and brittle, and the once stable mountains trembled with unnatural earthquakes. It wasn't too long before he encountered the Earth Lord, a massive figure of rock and stone. Like the Fire Lord, the Earth Lord was filled with rage, his once calm demeanor twisted by the same dark influence that had corrupted the plane of fire. Thrall approached cautiously, knowing that another battle might be inevitable. But he was determined to try diplomacy first. He needed the Earth Lord's help if he was going to stand a chance against the true enemy behind this chaos. "I've come to restore the balance," Thrall said, his voice steady as he faced the towering figure of the Earth Lord. "The elements have been corrupted, but I believe I can help." The Earth Lord glared down at him, his voice a deep rumble that shook the ground beneath Thrall's feet. "Help your kind has done nothing but disrupt the natural order. You seek to control the elements for your own gain, and now you come to me claiming to help." Thrall shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "I don't truly seek to control anything. I only want to restore what has been lost. Someone is manipulating the elements, turning them against us, and I believe Deathwing is behind it." At the mention of Deathwing sending the Earth Lord's sails, rage seemed to falter. He shifted uneasily, the ground beneath him trembling. "Deathwing," the Earth Lord muttered, his voice heavy with fear and anger. "If that is true, then we are all in great danger. I've already spoken with the Fire Lord. He agreed to help me. Will you do the same?" The Earth Lord was silent for a long moment, his massive form tense with indecision. Finally, he let out a heavy sigh, the ground beneath him settling. "Very well, Shaman. But if you fail, we will all be consumed by Deathwing's madness." Thrall nodded solemnly. As Thrall continued his journey through the elemental planes, he couldn't even shake the feeling that time was running out. Deathwing, cell influence was spreading, corrupting the very fabric of the world itself. But with the help of the elemental spirits, Thrall knew that he stood a chance, however slim, of restoring balance and stopping the Black Dragon King before it was too late. Thrall left the plane of Earth with a heavy heart, his thoughts swirling as he ventured onward. The deeper he journeyed into the elemental planes, the more he understood the scope of the threat. Deathwing's reach was far greater than he had imagined, his corruption poisoning the very essence of the elements themselves. Time was slipping through Thrall's fingers, and though he had the Fire Lord and Earth Lord on his side, he still needed the support of the air and water spirits if he hoped to stand any chance of victory. The plane of air was his next destination. As Thrall stepped through the portal, he was immediately struck by the overwhelming sense of motion and unpredictability. The sky here was endless, a vast expanse of swirling clouds and roaring wind. The ground was nowhere to be seen, only floating islands of rock suspended in the sky by unseen forces. The air was alive with energy, shifting and turbulent, as if the very atmosphere was trying to shake Thrall off balance. He took a deep breath, steadying himself against the relentless gusts, and reached out with his shamanic senses. The air spirits were near, but like the others, they were in turmoil. He could feel their anger, their sense of betrayal, but also their confusion. They didn't really understand why they had been turned against the Orcas, but they knew something had changed. Thrall pressed forward, his senses guiding him to the heart of the elemental chaos. As he approached a particularly violent storm, a figure began to take shape within the clouds, an ethereal being of pure wind and lightning, the Air Lord. The Air Lord's form shifted and flickered, never staying still for more than a moment. Its voice was like the crack of thunder, booming and filled with fury. "You should not have come here, Shaman. The winds have no mercy for those who defy them." Thrall stood his ground, the wind whipping at his cloak and hair. "I've come to restore the balance. The elements are in chaos because someone is manipulating them, twisting their will. I believe Deathwing is responsible." The Air Lord's sesh form pulsed with power, the clouds around it churning violently. "Do not speak that name here. The winds do not bend to the will of mortal. You and your kind have taken from the elements for too long, and now the time of reckoning has come." Thrall clenched his fists, his frustration mounting. He knew the Airlord's anger was born of Deathwing's influence, but breaking through that rage was proving harder than he expected. I was spoken with the Fire Lord and the Earth Lord. They've agreed to help me stop this madness. You know that what is happening isn't natural. The winds aren't here supposed to destroy indiscriminately. They're being forced to. Let me help you. The Air Lord hesitated, its form shifting slightly as the winds around it slowed. Speak of the other Lord. Thrall nodded. Yes, they've seen the truth. They understand that Deathwing is behind it. If we don't stop him, he'll tear the elemental planes apart, and your power, your very essence, will be lost. For a long moment, the Air Lord was silent, the storm around it calming ever so slightly. Thrall held his breath, waiting for the spirit's response. Finally, the Air Lord spoke, its voice softer now, though still filled with a lingering anger. If the Fire Lord and Earth Lord have chosen to aid you, then perhaps there's truth to your word. But know this, Shaman, if you are wrong, the winds will show no mercy. You and all your people will be swept away. Thrall bowed his head in gratitude. Thank you, I want to let you down. With the Air Lord's reluctant blessing, Thrall continued his journey. The plane of water was his final destination, and he knew it would be the most difficult. Water, more than any other element, was tied to emotions, its ebb and flow a reflection of the world's sire. If Deathwing had corrupted the waters, then it would take every ounce of Thrall's strength to set things right. As he entered the plane of water, Thrall was immediately struck by the sense of weightlessness. The world around him was a vast, endless ocean, with no clear sky or land in sight. He floated in the depths, the water cool and silent, but beneath the surface he could feel the tension. The currents were turbulent, swirling with an unnatural force, as if the sea itself was angry. Thrall reached out, calling to the Water Lord, the elemental spirit that ruled this domain. At first, there was no response, only the quiet whisper of the ocean. But as he ventured deeper into the plane, he began to sense a presence, a dark, brooding force lurking beneath the wave. Suddenly, the water around him surged, and Thrall found himself face to face with the Water Lord. The spirit was a massive serpentine figure, its body made of swirling currents and shimmering light. Its eyes were dark and filled with sorrow. You should not have come here, Shaman, the Water Lord said, its voice like the crash of waves against rock. The waters are no longer your ally. They have been poisoned by the deceit of your kind. Thrall shook his head, his heart heavy. Duano, that's not true. The waters have been corrupted, yes, but not by the Orcus. Deathwing is behind it. He's twisting the elements, using them to further his own dark purpose. The Water Lord's eyes narrowed, and the currents around Thrall tightened, pulling him deeper into the depths. Crying, Deathwing, he has returned. Thrall nodded, his lungs burning as the water pressed in around him. Yes, and if we don't stop him, he'll destroy everything. The Fire Lord, Earth Lord, and Air Lord have all agreed to help me. Will you? For a long moment, the Water Lord was silent, its serpentine body coiling around Thrall like a cage. Then slowly, the pressure began to ease, and the currents around him calmed. Very well, Shaman, the Water Lord said, its voice softer now. If the others have agreed to aid you, then I will do the same. But if you fail, the waters will drown your people, and nothing will remain of your world. Thrall nodded, relief flooding through him as the Water Lord released him. Tyra, I understand, thank you. With the support of all four elemental spirits, Thrall knew that the time had come to confront Deathwing. The fallen Black Dragon King had been manipulating the elements for too long, and now, with the power of the elements at his side, Thrall was ready to put an end to his reign of terror. He returned to the material world, the weight of his mission heavy on his shoulder. The Orcish lands were in worse shape than ever, torn apart by earthquakes, storms, and floods. His people were struggling to survive, and he knew that if he didn't act soon, there would be nothing left to save. Thrall gathered his strength and set out to find Deathwing. The battle would be long and hard, but he was ready. The fate of the world depended on it. It didn't take long to find Deathwing. The Black Dragon King had taken refuge in a volcanic wasteland, the ground beneath him cracked and smoldering with heat. As Thrall approached, he could feel the immense power radiating from the dragon power that had once been used to protect the world, but had now been twisted into something dark and destructive. Deathwing turned his massive head toward Thrall, his molten eyes glowing with malevolence. So the shaman finally arrives. I was wondering when you would come to face me. Thrall stood tall, his warhammer heavy in his hands. HFY corrupted the elements. Deathwing. Yvette turned them against the world they were meant to protect. It ends here. Deathwing let out a low rumbling laugh, the ground beneath him trembling with the force of it. You think you can stop me, Shaman? The elements are mud. They bend to my will. You and your pitiful orcas are nothing compared to the power I command. Thrall tightened his grip on Doomhammer, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the presence of the elemental spirits around him, their power coursing through his veins. The elements are not yours to control, Deathwing. They have chosen to stand with me. With a roar, Deathwing lunged at Thrall, his massive claws slashing through the air. Thrall leaped to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack, and swung Doomhammer with all his strength. The warhammer connected with Deathwing's side, sending a shockwave of elemental energy through the dragon. Spotted. But Deathwing was far from defeated. He let out a deafening roar, his wings unfurling as he took to the sky. Lava erupted from the ground beneath him, and the air around Thrall grew thick with smoke and ash. Thrall called upon the elements, summoning the power of fire and air to clear the smoke. The flames around him responded, parting to reveal Deathwing hovering above him, his molten eyes blazing with fury. You will fall, Shaman snarled, his voice echoing across the wasteland. Be here, and when you do, the elements will belong to me forever. Thrall gritted his teeth, his muscles straining as he summoned the full power of the elemental spirit. The ground beneath him trembled as the earth, air, fire, and water surged through him, their combined strength a force unlike anything he had ever felt before. With a roar of his own, Thrall unleashed the power of the elements, sending a wave of energy crashing toward Deathwing. The Black Dragon King screamed in rage as the force of the elements struck him, tearing through his corrupted body. For a moment, it seemed as though Deathwing would withstand the attack, his dark magic holding him together. But Thrall pressed on, calling upon the spirits to lend him their strength. The elements responded, their power overwhelming Deathwing's defenses with a final earth-shattering roar. Deathwing's body disintegrated, his molten form dissolving into the ground below. The corruption that had plagued the elements began to fade, the world slowly returning to its natural state. Thrall collapsed to his knees, exhausted but victorious. The elements were free once more, and the balance had been restored. The world was safe. For now,